for the same meeting. The number's the same.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just did it with just the numbers. I just typed in the number, so.
All right, we're about to go live.
3, 2.
Oop, did you close that? Just wait a minute. Oh, you are live. Okay.
Okay. I'll call this meeting to order. Please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of
States of
America,
America, and to the republic for which it stands,
stands one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God, and
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
matrix scattered than normal.
You got my email about the consent agenda?
I did, yes. First item up is consent agenda. Approve the following items which include in the consent agenda: 6A, the meeting minutes from May 5th, regular Board of Education meeting. 8I, the special education packet. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen.
Joan will second.
Thank you, Joan. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. And
Hi.
Dan?
Aye.
Thank you. 7-4-0 against the consent agenda, motion passes. For the good of the cause,
There wasn't any.
okay, so if so, we'll catch it on
Yeah.
the second good of the cause. Reports, Dana, the budget status report.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at the new formats. I'm more than happy to get feedback as this goes forward in terms of information. If you look at the first page, really the first page kind of tells everything which you would typically have seen and I would explain. And really that first box where it says the fund summary basics, a general, that is for the month ending April. It's typically what I would have shown in a spreadsheet. And you can see total revenue, $76,000 under budget. So it gives you a negative in terms of how it compares to last year. Total expenditures, month to month, same thing in terms of our total expenditures. We're down 315,000. So it's looking at for the month of April. The total revenue, Karen and I were talking about this earlier, that the 18.361 million, that's 94.7% compared to last year. So that's again, very similar to what I would have shown you in the spreadsheet. It does give you that, it's under by $109,000. And then it breaks it down into the local state sources and so on and so forth. Same thing with the total expenditure, where we're looking at, if you see that, we've spent 74.7% through the month of April compared to 63.1%. It's under budgets from year to date of some $572,000. And there, again, it breaks it down into the major categories where those expenses lie. If you look at that box at the very end, in that area, the end of fiscal year projections, one thing that Forecast 5 does, and you can see this in the bar graphs, it gives you the actuals month to month from July to present, end of April, but then it projects out to the end of the fiscal year. So it shows you that projection as well going forward based on past trends. So looking at that end of the fiscal year projection, what it's showing you there is, in terms of what our revenue was or what our budget is, what of our expenditures and where the variance lies. So if you're looking at it right now, it's showing that we're going to be somewhere in that $463,000 range in terms of to the good if things continue trending the way they are. Obviously, our expenses are down more so because of where we are. We don't have a lot of those the last 2 months, those typical spring expenditures that we would be seeing. field trips, the sporting events, things like that, extra duty pay, just normal expenditures that we would see. So, it is obviously a difference in comparison to previous years because of where we are. But I like it because it does show you, it breaks it down by the categories, but it also then gives you that projection as well in terms of where we are. When you look at the bar graph, it's showing you month to month. I had to really look at that going, what is this 7? What's this 8? What's this 9? So when you look at it, that's what it's showing you. 05, 04, 03, those are the months that it's showing you in terms of the actual versus projection.
Dana?
Questions on this first page? I know it's a whole different format and, ask the questions and whatever and share. It's something I've been working with this Forecast 5 software. So that it can kind of give a different look, same information, different look. Our projected budget for next year is there. One of the things I liked about it, and I talked about this software months ago, is I can put in and we can kind of create like those long-term projections based on where we are. One of the things we'll talk about is the potential for having to come up with 20% in reduction in aid, specifically coming from the states. I can build a budget accordingly within this software and say, okay, I can do scenarios and say 5%, 10%, this is what it would look like number wise, and then, build how we're going to, make those reductions. I can use this and project out and say, if we look at a typical 2% growth, what does that look like for our budgets over the next 5 years, and the property tax and all that and revenue. So it does way more than what I'm just showing you here, but for this purpose, for the budget, monthly budget status reports.
Colleen, did you have something?
I did. I'm sorry. I tried to interject a little too quickly, but Dana, so when we're looking at this, and it is a new format, because of what's been going on the last 2 months, will any of that help in the potential 20% reduction that hopefully we don't see going into next year?
Yes, in my, in potentially in a couple of different ways. By putting a freeze on spending and the fact that we're not spending in typical areas that I mentioned, we should have a larger than what we would have typically have seen on a normal year fund balance.
Okay.
And then we can decide what we want to do with that. So one of the things that will be an option is putting money into a new teachers' retirement reserve accounts, so that we can down the road tap into it when we have those years where we see a spike, which we're probably going to see a spike, not for this coming year because the rate has already been set, but in the year we could see a 2-3% increase in what we have to put in for teachers' retirement system. Creating this reserve account will help offset any of those increases specific to teachers' retirement. So any savings now could be used in those kind of reserve accounts. We could put money towards the EBLAR accounts, reserve accounts, liability accounts. We also have the payments for BOCES, the third payment come July 1st, $510,000. We will have to make that payment. Right now, our fund balance is such that we can do that because we're still sitting at about 8% of a fund balance, need to be down that 4%. So there's money there. And this is something that's always been the case. This is what we were planning on doing. But what it could potentially do is the savings could then also help offset some of that. Whereas in a year, we could then tap into the fund balance to help offset revenue loss. Like we've been, what we've been using over the last few years, that assigned fund balance. Like this year, it's the $520,000 that we've actually never had to have tapped into. Well, we might have to actually build a line next year and actually use that money to offset revenue loss from the states.
Okay.
Not for this current year budget, but it could be, a year from now.
Okay, thank you.
Question for you, Dana. Do you have control over, on the graphs, control over the axes?
I can edit these, yes.
Because what I wouldn't want to compact them anymore, but if possible, would it be able to see last year's, like you started July of 19,
Yeah,
so that we can see 13 months is versus 12 months?
Sure, I can. I mean, there's a lot of things I can do. I can provide, even show you like a historical of expenditures, just have a graph on revenue and show you the last 5 years if you wanted to, and how it compares. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how the information is presented and what the information is presented. I could drill down on any one of these and give you more details line by line, whether it's expenditures or even on the revenue side. So yes.
Okay, great, thank
Yep,
you.
I could, you send me what you want and I can play with it and say, and see, and if it's not something I can figure out, I reach out to our rep and say, this is what I need to do. And they will help build it. The nice thing is, Forecast 5 is in several hundred districts. And if it's not something I have at my disposal, I tell them what I want, and 9 times out of 10, another district has it, and they just upload that module into our stuff so I can then use it.
cool. It looks great. I was so happy to see the design and the colors and exactly the same information as you've always presented, but it just, it's in the infographic format.
Right, a little more visually appealing than just the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Yes.
A
The other two,
dashboard.
and again, this was probably the most straightforward one, but I could get into the weeds here and show you, lots of stuff in terms of breakdowns and historicals and all that. And as the more I play with it, I'll be, maybe on occasion I'll, throw up a topic to show you, just to give you guys some information, whether it's a historical look or even a projection as to where we're heading after, as the new year moves on.
Any other questions for Dana on the budget status? If not, Dana, if you could get right into the treasurer's report.
Sure. This is the same monthly report. That comes right from, all this comes from our reconciliation with our bank accounts. Very little has changed there. We're still sitting at, 12 million in our cash sweep. You'll see it shows you the difference. Our EBLAR 910,000, tax surgery 375, unemployment reserve. So we're sitting at a balance there from last month, $14.7 million. Total expenditure, disbursements 1.4. So you're still seeing we have a fairly healthy cash balance, $13 million. So again, it all stems back to we're still benefiting from the ban that we took out of, almost $7 million back a year ago. It's paying all of our capital project expenditures, but it's still there. But not to mention our normal revenue sources. So on the other side, you'll see we have $166,000 outstanding in checks. A lot of those are fairly minor, except for one, which is $119,000, and that was a outstanding payment or check to BOCES, is really what that big one comes down to. The month of April was kind of a quiet month. for obvious reasons that we've already talked about, but also on the capital project side in terms of payments, just the way things come in, stuff like that. It was a quiet month. You'll see it pick back up in May. We've had some considerable payments just go out for capital project information, but we're still in a very healthy spot. You will see probably, I'm working on it now, our next ban in the process of doing that. That will be done by the end of June. And that's going to be the big one. It's right now, we're looking at taking another ban out for $18.5 million in change. That will take us to the end in terms of our capital project. So as I've said all along in terms of the budget process, I was expecting a big ban towards the end that will get, early July is probably when we'll get it. That will sit in our account for 4 or 5 months, and hopefully we can generate some revenue of those $18 million sitting in our own accounts, but that won't be until July. Questions on the treasury report?
No?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I have a question. What is ban?
It is the bond anticipatory notes. So basically, we take out a year. We've taken out 2 bands. They're usually good for a year. It's basically a short-term loan.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Our first one was like $700 and some thousand. The second one was 7.3. What it did was it rolled in the first band into the second band. So it was a little over $7 million, help us pay for the capital project. And then the 18.5 is basically, from my understanding, is that is potentially going to be what our bond amount is. It's not going to be the 19.1. It will be about 18.5 right now anyway, if we spend everything.
So Dana, I do have a question. So when you add those 2 bands together, it adds up to more than 20 or $19.1 million. How does that work?
Oh, it rolls in. So you're not adding to it. It actually, the $18 million.
And adds another amount to it to make the 19.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So the first one was like 754,000. That got rolled into a second band for $7 million. And then that one will get rolled into the 18.5.
Great, thanks. That makes sense.
Yep.
I get it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I can't exceed the 19.1.
Good. That was my concern.
Yes.
So, thank you.
No, can't go beyond that number.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Dana.
Yep.
Nice work.
Please let me know what additional information in terms of the budget, expenditures, revenue. I'll be more than happy to figure it out and share whatever in whatever format and what additional information you might want.
Great.
Is there any registrar type information in there? Like number of students, etc.?
Not through this. This is strictly on the financial side. They do offer another add-on called 5 Sites, which taps into all the state reports, which could give enrollment and look at comparing our district with any district in the state, free and reduced lunch. I mean, basically any information that gets reported to the states, they compile it into the site that we can tap into. If we want to go that, it's an additional cost to have it, but
More expense, yep.
yeah, but I
sounds
looked at
very
it and
interesting.
it's great. Yep, it really has a wealth of information. So I don't know.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Move on to the
Thank
superintendent
you.
report.
Okay, I'm going to attempt again to share my screen for the superintendent's report. So let's see how I do here.
Yeah.
So let's see. I get that to be the slideshow.
Ooh.
All right, you can see that, correct? All right. By the way, this is this photograph. I was about 20th online for the drive-through COVID-19 testing on Wednesday. And Dana Wood, I believe, you were one car behind me, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so this is what we were doing last week.
Wow.
No, I think it's in the back door.
Appreciate that. So I want to talk about a few things tonight. First one is the end of year calendar. I've shared some information with you on that. I'd like to share it again and maybe here and in a public session so that everybody understands what where our calendar is. Also want to talk about graduation. Want to mention the election coming up, and then talk a little bit about reopening. And finally, share some good news from the schools. So bear with me. Start out with the calendar. So you're looking there at our district calendar as it was approved last year. As you know, a lot of things have changed. The Superintendent Conference Day, we changed from the Friday the 20th of March to the 16th of March. That was the first day that we closed schools from students in person, and teachers prepared their remote learning to begin on the 17th. March 17th was the first at-home learning day. March 18th was the statewide closure day. And why that matters is because of how you can count a day when the state didn't close, but we did. And so that kind of calculates into where our final day will be. In addition, we of course had to cancel our spring break for the 2-week period that we were scheduled for spring break in April. And then then we come up to May, and we come up to Friday. So just to go over this, as you know, it's been a strange year. And it's interesting, I think, that we're still discussing the calendar even as we approach the end of the year. The reason for all this is that the governor's executive orders have really shaped how our calendar runs during this emergency time. But also, while some guidance has been provided, not all details have been provided, and you never know what's going to come next. So it's raised some questions about where we're going to be. So really a lot of this is educated guesses. We're making educated guesses about what's to come. And I'm just going to share with you, and I've already shared with you what some of those are. So we'll start with the Friday. So in order to qualify for waiving the 180-day rule, the executive order said we had to use all of our vacation days and all of our snow days. So that was Executive Order 202.14. So our last scheduled vacation day on the calendar is this Friday. And so we have to be sure that we are on in school rather than closed as we had planned to do in order to meet that executive order. So that is the reason why students and staff will be on in terms of learning that day, remote learning at home, remote instruction and at-home learning. The second is Memorial Day. People say, well, isn't Memorial Day a vacation? Well, Memorial Day is actually a holiday. It's a federal holiday. And it's really the first federal holiday that we've had since this whole event began. And there has been no direction to continue school on a holiday. So we're going to take the holiday on Monday, just as we had planned to do. So, Monday, Memorial Day, we encourage everybody to celebrate the day and to honor our country and to remember those who have died in service to our country, as we normally would. I'll be putting up my flag later on this week. Then finally, the last day of school. So this is, of course, the one we have the most questions about. And some schools have decided to go ahead and formally announce the last day of school. And they're doing so without any guidance from the executive orders. What I'm doing right now is letting you know where we will probably be, and then we will change the calendar as we get closer. But essentially, what we'll be doing is we'll be continuing school through the 182nd day. And that means that 182nd day, there's really two 180 days. There's a 180-day calendar that the state requires. There's a 182 days that are in our faculty contracts. So we'll be continuing through the 182nd day. And when you count up all these days, you get to Friday, June 12th. So it is likely that Friday, June 12th will be the last day of school. And that's a good day for us to be planning on. You just have to know that this is unofficial, and it would become official if there's no further guidance from the governor's office. It would also change if there was further guidance that changes it. So the 12th, unofficial, final day of school. Any questions about the calendar? I know that was clear, and I'm sure nobody has any questions about that. Next, graduation. Our high school principal, Tammy Casey, and the senior class advisors, and a number of our graduating seniors this year have been talking about how we plan to move forward with graduation. And we're going to do it in a way that does not violate the social distance orders that limit large gatherings. So the format that we're presently putting together is a drive-in format, much like what you'd see in a drive-in movie. So according to this plan, students and their families would attend, and it would really just be students and their families. Each family would be in a vehicle. They'd have a designated parking space on the oval. We would have a sound system, we would have a screen and a podium set up on the front steps of the building near the flagpole. We'd give speeches, valedictorian, salutatorian, guest speaker, and just as we would normally do. We would also use this, we would also show the slideshow that's typically shown at baccalaureate, because we would not have baccalaureate this year. So that's where what would be on the screen, among other things. So this is a work in progress. We're writing it up. We will be sharing it with those local officials who oversee these orders to maintain social distance and limit gatherings, to make sure that what we're doing meets those standards. We'll have a backup plan in case they don't, or in case something changes. Now, in addition, we're also going to be honoring seniors with banners on the light posts, signs distributed on their lawns. There'll be a drive around the lake. And on my way to the board meeting tonight, I saw that we are also honoring our seniors on the ORDA signboard.
That's wonderful. What great ideas.
So while I said all of this is a work in progress, there are a lot of people working to make sure that our seniors are recognized, that they're honored, and that this year is special, even though it's obviously had to undergo all kinds of changes. Difficult time for seniors, still a special time as well. Coming up, of course, is the election, and we talked about this last time. So as you know, the state has required us to run our budget and school board member election by mail using only absentee ballots. So this has been a logistical challenge, requiring that about 4,000, I think it's 4,100, 4,150, what? Two. 4,152 ballots with stamped self-addressed envelopes, return envelopes, are being sent to every registered voter within the school district. Now, overseeing this monumental effort is our own board clerk, Karen Angelopoulos, who is talking in my ear right back here and feeding me all the information. Karen is awaiting tonight's budget and ballot approvals, which you'll be voting on later, so that she can complete that ballot, finalize it, and then begin the task of stuffing envelopes on Thursday, and with an accurate ballot, of course, and then sending them out on Friday. So the ballots will be sent out at the end of this week. They should arrive in people's homes sometime in the middle of next week, well in advance of the return date, which is June 9th. So our ballots are due to be returned no later than Tuesday, June 9th at 5 p.m. They can't be accepted after 5 p.m. After that, that's when the voter's job is over, but Karen's job continues. Karen will be leading the effort to count all of the ballots and report accurately on the outcome. The ballot will also include, because we're sharing the mailing effort with the Lake Placid Library, it will include a Lake Placid Public Library ballot. So Karen's been working closely with Bambi Purdue at the library to coordinate the election with them. So I'd just like to say very publicly a big thank you to Karen Angelopoulos for all the work she's doing to make sure that our election is organized, accurate, and thorough. So thank you very much, Karen.
Kudos.
Thank
to
you, Karen.
Thank you.
Above and beyond.
Okay, a little bit on reopening. So I know that people are wondering about the plans to reopen schools in September. So right now, we of course are tuning in and awaiting any kind of clear guidance about whether or not schools will be allowed to offer. We're going to start with summer school this summer, which we have not received any word on, but we're hoping that that information is forthcoming. But for the fall, you know, there's a lot of planning to be done and a lot of answers that we're all looking for. We also don't know whether any actions on our part in the planning will be superseded by broader guidance that's statewide. So I'm going to tell you where we are, and then we're going to keep on working at it. We have been planning for reopening for weeks. We've been reading, we've been studying, we've been joining webinars, we've been considering the possibilities. So there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of planning, a lot of note taking. But because there's so much we don't know, we haven't made any hard and fast ironclad plans. But most recently, we have received a little bit more guidance, and this is from the Centers for Disease Control. This just came out on Friday the 15th. So this is a decision-making tool that spells out the standards we would need to meet to reopen our schools. So included in this decision tool are things like protocols on screening students and staff, hand washing, face masks, cleaning and disinfecting, social distancing, accommodating more vulnerable students and staff, responding to positive cases, communication, monitoring absences, consulting with health authorities, those kinds of things. So you can see that in this particular guidance document, or this decision tree, there's really 3 columns of categories, and you work your way through them all. And if you can get to yes on all of them, you would be able to open and monitor. Now, there's nothing so far that says that in the state of New York or in Lake Placid specifically, that this tool would be authoritative. But it's always a good bet to go with the CDC, I think. And so we're sort of taking this document, and then we're going to be bringing in all the information that we've already been collecting. And then, seeing where the gaps are, essentially, figuring out what it is that we would need to do, what kind of resources we would need, what kind of training we would need, all those kinds of things. So our focus will be on planning to reopen and on these protocols. We also recognize that there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So, should we have to continue with remote instruction in the fall, then we would redirect. We would make sure that we have learned from this year. We would see all the things that we've done well. We would look for the gaps and make every attempt to fill in those gaps so that whatever the fall brings, our students are having the best possible education they can have. So that's where we are on reopening. Any questions about that?
Seems like we got a lot of work to be done.
Yes.
And because it seems like, there's a possibility that we would, I've heard some other schools where they would, maybe it was overseas, that they split the day.
Yeah, all those are possible.
All those, yeah.
Yeah, and of course it adds all kinds of complications. And how do you do that? How do you do that and deliver a solid curriculum? How do you maintain that? How do you keep kids from falling behind? how do you ensure that when children aren't in school, that whoever their caretakers are available to take care of them? There's all kinds of questions like that. And nobody's got all the answers, of course, but we've certainly been tuning in to what others are doing, as well as what are some other ideas that we might come up with here that would really be very specifically beneficial to us. Anything else on that?
Roger, is there any kind of that you're aware of, any kind of forum out there for superintendents and administrators within the state to start sharing ideas about possible scenarios and what what you might be doing and might try to do? Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, no, there are, and we've been joining some, and I'll continue to be looking for that as we move forward. Certainly, a lot of people are talking. A lot of people are studying. We have a local group that's working on this, a local group of superintendents, and so there's a lot of things being written, of course, and published, and so we're reading all that as well. But yes.
Great. Thank you.
And let me finish with some good news, because I shared with you all kinds of complications tonight, and some great pictures. So despite the challenges of at-home learning, we continue to hear the good news coming out of people's homes and teachers' feedback, etc. So I'll just share a little bit with you. There are many students, of course, who miss their friends and miss their teachers every day, but it's interesting to note, and I've received this feedback from a number of people, that there are some students who are thriving in this environment. And one of the pieces involved here, and you'll be somewhat familiar with this, is that school, for all of its social benefits, can also pose some social hurdles for children. And right now we have some students who are doing better than we would expect, or than they've done in the past. And it's really because they're studying and learning in a more individualized environment where both the social stresses that they deal with in school on a daily basis, as well as some of the other hurdles that allow them now a little bit more flexibility to do things in a way that works for them. So we are not just hearing where the problems are, but we're also hearing where the benefits are for some, depending on their learning styles and depending on the individuals. Other things. So some of our teachers, as well as our parents and students, they are integrating home-based skills into classroom experiences. So you'll see on here, now it does look delicious. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I do believe that this was not only a chance for this young woman to do a little cooking, but it was also part of a classroom experience. There's some involved here with cleaning. And then you have here an art project that's where the medium is the patio door, I believe that is. So we've got all kinds of creative things that are utilizing the home, not just trying to maintain sort of the typical academic environment. And that's been a nice piece. We're also seeing a lot of creativity, and these are these additional artworks up here. These are recent productions from some of our high school students. And this often comes out of nowhere, where our teachers are providing students with materials, or students are taking advantage of their own. And the next thing you know, sometimes in a day or two, students are producing some really, really beautiful work. So there's a lot of things going on. A lot of it's good. There's still a lot of challenging things. And of course, there's the uncertainty of the future. And we continue to work on all of this at the same time. And we've got a good team, administrators, teachers, teaching assistants, bus drivers, custodians, who are all working in their own way to address this sort of changing environment. And as I go, I'll just continue to try and share with you some of the little pieces that come out of that. So that's everything I have. Any questions from members of the board?
I
I'm
have a
good. Thank
question.
you.
No,
Sure.
thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, I'm
Can
gonna
you
go
pass
back.
this PowerPoint out to us?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask Karen to put it in the public section. Actually, it may already be posted on board docs. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're back.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Information for the board, we have a couple of reports, the extracurricular activity accounts report. In the executive content, we have the MOA with the spring coaches and then an agreement, three-way agreement that you're free to look at. Any questions regarding those reports?
Rick, brief comment.
Sure.
The three-way agreement was a recent addition. So if you read through your board docs information over the weekend, you would not have seen that. It's fairly important and fairly timely in that Borda's project sort of relies on clarifying their agreement with us in terms of the property line divisions and the approvals that go along with that, the insurance, the indemnifications, all that kind of stuff. So Bill Kissel is going to be at our next meeting, I believe. And we'll probably have this agreement up for approval. I know that there might be some feedback. If you share with us your feedback, we can get that to Bill and see if we can make any changes or if those changes are needed, depending on how his legal interpretation is.
Great. Any questions?
No.
Thank you. Linking goals with agenda items.
Students first and foremost with the wonderful alternative graduation plans, which I think is really creative and really thinking outside the box to make this as memorable as we can for the 2020 class.
Anyone else?
I think that also falls into community outreach as well.
Thank you. Okay, if no more, let's move on to the capital project updates. Under the updates, you'll see a lot of information. The updates on the project along with the project summary of May 11th. An email regarding the plaque and the plaque design. And I think that's it. I know there was some email discussion on regarding funds and considering where those should be aimed. Not sure if you'd like to discuss that at this time, or would you like to table that until later on?
There are a couple things that we probably do need to talk about, if you don't mind bringing it up. And one of those is the plaque. Karen, you want to go through what some of the information is that we need for the plaque? So we're trying to finalize the plaque, the two plaques, really. And so we gave you the design on there. And we're hoping everybody's okay with what's on the plaque. And then the questions are the size of the plaque and the location of the plaque, right, Karen? Is that what it is?
Right.
Okay,
And to make sure that all the names are correct.
right. So we want to make
We
sure,
already agreed that that was correct.
right.
So we just need to decide, or if you don't.
Hey, Karen, my name isn't correct, so I'll
Is it
just put that out
incorrect?
there now. Yeah, it's RE1, but that's okay. Just change it.
Yeah, and also Karen, that the T is still missing on my name.
Didn't. Wow. Thank you.
Good thing we're doing it.
Yeah, good job.
So we need to correct those.
Yep.
And then we need to talk about the size, right?
Yes,
What are the size options?
18 by 2 high, so 18 by 24 cast aluminum, single line border, raised lettering, black pebble background is about $1,000 each.
And so what's the alternative?
Well, when you say each, what does that mean? Are you gonna have more than one plaque?
Yeah, there's two, one for each building.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, I see, sorry. So, okay,
Gonna go in the vestibule.
Okay, so we're gonna go with the 18 by 24. Cast aluminum, single line border, raised lettering, black pebble background. Like,
Yeah.
but there really isn't an alternative to that, right?
Yeah. I don't see one.
Okay. And then as far as the locations, first recommendation was to put the plaque outside or mount it to the outside of the new entryways at each building, because they're part of the project and they're entryways. So that would be one alternative. Yeah, does anybody have any suggestions for any other alternatives?
my only thought is if it's gonna be made out of aluminum, it should probably be inside as opposed to out, for the oxidation, problem. So wherever it goes, it should be like under or protected from the weather.
One on the outside, is the one on the outside of the gym aluminum? So we do have plaques up and you can see, so the one outside of the gymnasium is now 20 years old. But I couldn't tell you what it was made of.
Okay, yeah, it's, okay. Well, just a thought, I mean,
Yep.
I'm sure.
How about if we follow up with a question to the people who are putting together the plaque, and we'll talk about weather. And if they're 100% protected, then we'll be a little bit flexible with that. But if there's any concern at all, we'll make sure that it's inside. I would think at that point inside the entryway.
Yeah, I would think the people who make them would know
Right.
probably better. So, okay, cool.
Great. Karen, does that answer questions?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we did need those answers for today. What else did we need to talk about? Do we want to go? So there's a kind of an important issue on the additional work, and do we want to talk about that now?
Sure.
So Dana mentioned that the approved budget for our capital project is $19.1 million. And and so all the projects that we're working on are going to be covered in that cost. We had talked about a number of other things, or a number of other things came up, and so this list was a result of some of those conversations, and then just some of the ideas that emerged, when a need was seen. And so what you're looking at is a pretty long list of projects. Now, some of those are fairly small, I guess, in the great scheme of things with this project relative to the rest of the project. The big one, of course, is that auditorium ceiling. And I think it's important that we just point out a couple of things about the auditorium ceiling. The auditorium is being redone. Originally, we wanted to replace the ceiling as well, but the concern was with the asbestos. So in the ceiling tiles themselves, and the cost involved in all of that. So we did not include it in the project. What they're telling us now is that it could come in under the within the whole cost of the project, but it's not a small number, as you can see on that document. What it would take to actually make it happen, and a lot of that is still asbestos abatement. I think $160,000. These are all estimates. The reason I'm even bringing it up is that the auditorium ceiling is probably it will probably remain the lowest common denominator of our auditorium into the future, because this is probably the last opportunity for, I'm going to guess, decades to do any replacement for it. it is the way it is. It hasn't changed much in a while. It has its limits by not addressing the ceiling itself. We're not really able to touch the lighting because if the lighting is included in the ceiling and then you disrupt the asbestos and then you have to do the abatement. So the reason why they brought it up is because right now the auditorium is a shell. The seats have not been installed, and they're letting us know that if we as a school district wanted to tackle the ceiling, it would be costly. It would still be under our total budget, and that it would it could be done at this point before the seats went in. And once the seats go in, and once the paint goes on the walls, and once the floors reinstalled, then there's really no other opportunity to do it. So that's what this is. This is a moment for us to make sure that we're doing what we want to do, and that we're making the decisions we want to make. And so without adding this, the ceiling will remain the way it is. The auditorium will still be improved with the wings and the seats and the floors and the walls and all of that. But the ceiling will still be the way it is. If we took this step, then of course the ceiling would be a part of this whole renovation package. So I want to make sure I point that out to everybody, just so you know where we stand in this particular scenario.
Bill, Roger, will that?
I'm kind of surprised that the ceiling wasn't included in the beginning.
Right. Well, it was a part of the original plan, but we were very concerned about cost. So, when we went through, you might remember this, Rick, right? We went through and we pared things down because we essentially set a barrier for ourselves at $20 million. And knowing that that there are multiple projects, and we cut back on a few, and then we reduced within, and the ceiling, was one of those pieces that we took out, right? So the ceiling was going to be included. We took it out because of the cost. You can see that it is costly. What was unforeseen was that the whole project in its entirety would come in under the planned budget. That's why it's back out here. We had originally talked about it 3 and 4 years ago and pulled it out.
I guess my only concern is the abatement, and that seems to go up 4 or 5 times. They say 160,000. I would be like, 300,000 more than that.
I can't vouch for this. I can tell you that when they put these numbers together, they were talking about it's our same architectural firm, and it's our construction managers, and these are estimates. And the word they used, this is especially Callie Gaspery, who's been doing a lot of work on our behalf leading this project, was conservative numbers. In other words, she thinks if anything, they're high, not low.
So if we decide to do this, what's the process?
It would be a change order. Am I right about that, Dana?
Yes.
Yeah.
What about the timeline? Will this stretch out the timeline at all?
I think it would, but I'm not sure how much time. Dana, do you remember when we talked about this, what the time frame was?
They didn't really bring up any extension beyond the normal deadlines. No, they were just stressing that if we wanted to do it, it needed to be started now because everything is open. Yeah, they didn't express any concern that this would push the end dates beyond its normal completion.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Okay.
So in doing this, are there other advantages besides taking the asbestos out of the auditorium? And the lighting upgrade. Are there other benefits that we can get by doing? Like you said, this is probably your only opportunity. What other, if any, benefits are out there that can be taken advantage of by doing it now?
I really think that it's an aesthetic thing, Jeff, mostly. So if you go in there and you look up, you'll know what I mean, right? So it's an aesthetic thing. It's certainly a lighting issue, like you pointed out. We are limited in what we could do with lighting. We had to say no to any other lighting changes because of the ceiling. But beyond that, I don't know that it changes anything in terms of the air exchangers. I believe that we've got that all covered. I don't believe it changes anything in terms of the sound, although I do believe that they would then, and I think it's in here even, there'd be some sound work. In other words, some, I don't know what they're called, the boards.
Baffles?
What are they called?
Are they like sound baffles or something?
Yeah, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So there would be that piece as a part of it too. I still think it's mostly aesthetic and lighting involved.
Well, I think
I
it
think we
does
should do
also, like with the abatements, it takes one more
Yeah,
hotspot out of the equation down the road.
that's
If-
true.
Right. If any issues ever come up with the ceiling in the auditorium, we would
Right.
have to abate before we could do any type of fixing.
It also gives you the opportunity to add additional technology in the future when it becomes available without disturbing, the ceiling as it is now.
Right. So if you're going to do some kind of, future, and I don't know what it would be. I'm not a lighting guy. I'm not a sound guy. But if you were to do some future lighting or sound that would involve the ceiling, then sure, that would be it. We are improving the sound system in the auditorium, so it's really not impacting us there. The lighting is the house lighting, but I do imagine that there would be some options for future lighting improvements. The spotlighting and all of that's in there.
Roger, I had sent this email out, and it seems like this is a appropriate time to ask this question. And it involves the elementary school and whether or not this thought is even feasible. Obviously, we put a large family through the school ourselves with 5 children going through, so we have a good history of knowing like the classroom layout. And I know that the building wasn't originally designed to have the panel walls through some of the classrooms. It was built on that philosophy at the time of the open classroom concept. And what I am wondering now, if there is a small windfall left in this budget when things that are imperative are taken care of, could we look at the feasibility of the 4 or 5 classrooms in the elementary school that do not have any window or direct ventilation or natural light because the wall is separating it? Could we possibly have someone look at it to see if the wall could be run in the other direction, the panel wall that's there, so that each side of it gets a window? And I know that the CDC is just putting out guidelines, and it's not necessarily directed at the Lake Placid district, but ventilation is one of those things. And I don't know, maybe this is the time, if there is any funding left, that we could look at that and possibly make a change.
So, I got your email, and I did want to have some answers for you. So I did speak about this with our architects. I asked what it would take. Like you, Colleen, I don't like the fact that we have a series of classrooms both upstairs and downstairs that don't have windows, and so you have sort of the dark rooms and the light rooms.
Right.
This all goes back to the 70s when the elementary school was built. It was built as an open school where there were no walls,
Right.
and those walls were slowly built. Constructed probably one at a time. I think a lot of them in-house. I know some of the ones that I've seen have been in-house. The last one was in the 5th grade,
Right.
interestingly enough. But so like you, I see the how the elementary school would really benefit from that. So I did ask our mosaic architects about it. And here's what, and this was also Callie Gasper, she's our go-to person. She said, if to redesign the rooms would require some time. She said it would probably require at least a couple of months because it's when you redo walls, you don't just redo the walls themselves. She said it requires the work of not just like the architectural design, but also the engineers and that because it has to do with electrical, lighting, heating, right? Because the heaters are placed for the classrooms the way they exist. And so all of that would have to be looked at. She said that, I asked her about, any estimate in cost. She couldn't give me a number, but she did say it would be, it would probably be more expensive than, say, I would assume, which is typically the case, by the way. And that's because of, it would really require, she said, it's really kind of you really end up gutting it, and you end up building all new walls, new ceilings, and the ventilation that you're talking about also has to be reconstructed as well, along with the lighting. So if you were to go in right now and look at our administrative offices, we're actually doing this in the administrative offices. That was part of the original project. Just to make a change that adds a conference room and a couple of other things that were highest on our list there required us to gut the whole administrative offices. And of course, all that took a tremendous amount of planning 3 years ago when we did it. So what she was describing was essentially rebuilding the classrooms from the ground up, which she said would be extensive, and she said it would take a while, and it would extend the life of our project. She didn't have a cost. She couldn't give me a cost that quickly. It was just a conversation about it that we had, and so that's essentially what I got out of that conversation.
Okay. Okay. Well, no, I appreciate you exploring it, Roger. I mean, it just, we're again in this uncharted territory, and it just lends one to start thinking of how can we increase ventilation in a classroom. And not only that, just we have long winters here, and to have, classrooms with no windows, no light. I really just thought it could have been an opportunity. But I do appreciate you at least exploring it.
Yeah. And then just to finish up the additional work list, if you have any questions, there are a lot of things on there. Some of them are really probably good ideas, and Dana and I have looked at some of them. They're not 100% necessary, but some of them would be beneficial. So we wanted to make sure we shared that with you.
What is the masonry restoration? Is that part of the limestone?
Yeah, so even though it was interesting that they put that on there. They probably didn't need to, because we're already restoring the masonry, but it hasn't been done yet. And Dana, do you want to talk about that at all, where we are in the masonry?
We're waiting to get some type of proposal from the subcontractor that did it last time. We're looking to go to them directly. Schoolhouse did reach out to Brian, is his name, and said he's still very interested in completing it, and it will fall under the SED threshold of $35,000. So we don't need to do anything different as it relates to SED for approval. But he said he does have time coming up this summer, and he's hoping to do it.
I'd like to get a final cost on that limestone project. Started out at $20,000 or whatever it was.
I do believe it's in the spreadsheet that we get from Mosaic. They do have a separate line.
It is.
Because when we got into it, we were able to roll it into the capital project. So just about all of the funding for it has come out of the capital project. I want to say it's up in that $200,000 range.
So just to finish up with the auditorium ceiling, because we just want to make sure everybody knows all this, right? You read my notes, you read my recommendations on this, or at least my comments on it. If it's something that the board decided the board wanted to go forward with, it's a decision we'd have to make pretty soon. So I don't know how we would do that, Rick. I guess we would have to get feedback probably this week on whether or not people think it's a good idea, and that's real. So we would have to start with your feedback, and we'll take no feedback as meaning to maintain things the way they are. But we would definitely need to hear feedback from people who wanted to move ahead with that if we were going to make a decision to do that.
Do we need public comment, or can we just vote tonight?
You don't need to vote at all really until later. Well, I guess we need to vote. We need to vote later. We wouldn't vote tonight. That's because it would need to be a change order.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just seems like, you know, it should have been in the original project, and it was done simply for, you know, the financial, you know, to make that number look good before the voter. But it's, to me, it's all about that abatement. You know, we got lead, asbestos, all that stuff. The more we can get out of the school, the better. And this may be, I mean, who knows what's coming as a result of this pandemic. This could be our only shot for decades to redo this. So, yeah, to me, it seems.
I do think it's our only shot to do it for decades, regardless of the pandemic, and that's why we're talking about it now.
Yeah,
I think that's the case. It's just a matter of whether or not it's something we would really want to do.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm for it. You know, but
I'll make a motion. Let's move it forward.
I'll second that motion.
I'm behind it. I think it's a good idea. I mean, if we're within the budget, then by all means, let's go ahead and do it, because you're never going to get an opportunity again for maybe never.
Yeah.
Not on our watch, anyway.
Any comments from anyone else?
We ask for a vote.
No, I think it's a great idea to do it now when we have the opportunity.
May I have a vote on the adding the auditorium ceiling to the change orders, or for proceeding with the auditorium ceiling project at the amount of $595,125?
Do you need a vote or a motion, Rick?
We had a motion by Dan, seconded by Liam.
Okay. We're going to vote now. Can we do that?
We certainly could, if everybody's
sure.
comfortable with that.
Yeah,
I'm in.
All in
Yeah.
I'm
favor?
in. Aye.
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 Joan, are you opposed?
No, I said aye. I said aye.
Are you for or opposed? Colleen?
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Oh, that's fine. The cat was in the background.
So we have a
She was banging at the door, and I had to tell Kelly to come get her.
7-4-0 against, so the motion to proceed with the auditorium ceiling has passed. Thank you. Satisfy, Roger?
I think that's pretty authoritative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? Thank you for all of that. If not, next item up is the change orders. There is one change order here. It's, again, informational only, as its expense does not require budget approval. So if there's any discussion on that, otherwise we'll move forward. Okay, so moving right along, discussion phase, superintendent's evaluation. Superintendent self-eval section is now complete, so hopefully you've been in there and looked around. As a reminder, we're looking at board members putting their feedback in as soon as possible. We're looking for completion on that, and then that way I can move that forward. I'm heeing and hawing here because I was looking for the timeline that we set forth.
Oh.
But
What's your completion date, Rick?
that's what I was
Wasn't it
just
the end of
looking
May?
for.
Was
It's
Yeah.
in board doc, it's in the super eval.
It's
So the
in
dates
super
are in there.
eval, and I believe it's the end of May. So
think
it's
so.
coming up here rather quickly. Correlates with the nice weather, which I apologize for. So please get in there and look. If you're having problems, Karen is here for you as always. Next item is the meeting minutes. That's under the consent. Personnel items, we have a non-teaching staff appointment. Upon the recommendation of superintendent, approve the appointment of Samuel Perkins as a 12-month custodian at the elementary school for a 1-year probation appointment beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending on June 30th, 2021. Salary is calculated on the CSEA salary schedule for the 2019-2020 year and will be readjusted according to the pending CSEA contract for the 2020-21 year, such as salary step 1 is based upon 2019-2020 school year is $17.45 an hour. May I have a motion for this non-teaching staff appointment?
Yes.
Yes.
Colleen, Liam,
Colleen first, Liam second. Does that work?
Yes. I
Okay.
think it's great to have an alumni back. I think he's also, isn't he a classmate of yours, Liam?
Yes, absolutely. I graduated with him, and you know, I haven't spoke. I was hoping to actually see him at our reunion, but unfortunately I had to cancel that. Maybe we'll do a Zoom reunion. But you know, he's a great guy. I was hoping maybe there'd be a way we could, bike club or somehow use his skills as an amazing but trick. He does like trick bikes. But if not,
Oval.
oh yeah, it'll be great to have him on board for sure. I'm glad that he's back. I wish more of my classmates would come back.
I've heard that's the way he mops floors, Liam. So.
yeah. Hopefully.
Any other discussion on Mr. Perkins? If not, may I please have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions? That's 7-4-0 against. The motion passes. The next non-teaching staff appointment, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the appointment of David Preston as a 12-month third shift custodian for 1-year probationary period, beginning on July 1st, 2020 and ending on June 30th, 2021. Salary is again calculated by the CSA salary schedule for the 2019-20 year and will be readjusted according to the pending CSA contract on 2020 through 2021. Such as the salary step 5 is based upon the 2019-2020 school year is $18.65. May I have a motion for this appointment?
Yes.
Martha
Joan,
was first, Joan second. Thank you. Any discussion?
I will say something that my daughter Kelsey lives at Northwood, and when she heard that he was leaving to come to the district, she was very disappointed because he is well loved at Northwood School, and I think he's going to be missed there, but we're very lucky to have him.
Great. Thank you, Colin. Anything else? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-4-0 against. Appointment of election inspectors and workers on the budget vote, June 9th, 2020. Recommended action upon recommendation of the superintendent. Approve the following inspectors / poll workers for June 9th, 2020 budget vote. And those, the election inspector is Karen Angelopoulos. Poll workers are Patty Mayberry, Lisa Risberger, Michelle Kalina, and Elise Bigor. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Second.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions, comments? It's a lot of work, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
I
And
think
you get them all counted in 4 hours.
we're-
Accurately.
you can watch it live, Dan.
Oh, it's gonna be
Okay.
Wow. Maybe we should gather. Okay, may I have a vote on this, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Not, the motion passes 7-0. Additional action items, approval of Lake Placid Central Schools 2020, 2021 budgets. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the Lake Placid Central Schools Administration program and capital budgets for the 2020-21 school year totaling $19,978,464 as presented. May I have a motion to approve the budget?
Yes, so moved.
Martha.
Martha was first. Have a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Discussion.
Thank you for bringing us in along the process. It was very interesting.
We can't hear you.
I said, thank you for bringing us along the process. It was very interesting.
Did everybody get that?
It was very garbled on my end, but maybe it's just me.
It is. She just said, thank you very much for bringing us along. I believe that was it, Martha, correct? Yeah. So, yeah, my comment is this was a somewhat challenging year, but Dana and Roger, thank you very much for all your hard work. And again, the process was relatively easy process. So thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I did want to say just the sheet that's the summary of the possible budget reductions. If indeed it's horrible that we would possibly realize this 20% reduction from, New York State, and we're all hoping that maybe something will come forth in a fifth stimulus package, but who knows? But I will say that I am glad to see that in descending order that the faculty positions are at the very last thing that would be considered to be removed. And I just feel like we're in a time in history across the world where we've never experienced this type of situation. It's historical in at least modern education. And I feel that there's so much uncertainty that could possibly going into the fall, even though I feel that our current faculty are doing everything that they can absolutely do to make sure that our students are on point. I just feel that we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge in September that we are going to have many children, even though there might be a small percentage that are doing well, many of these children are going to come back to school and need remediation and need to be retaught social types of skills. And who knows what could happen at some point in the year that we might revert back to remote learning. And I just hope and pray that everything works out well, that we can keep our current teaching numbers and that they won't need to be reduced. I just feel that, and I don't know, Roger, I've talked with you about this before, and I think you share that. We don't know what we're walking into in September, and I hope that we can keep everyone on board.
Well said.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
One addition I might add, for those that don't have the document but heard elimination of positions, it is important that it's by attrition. That's an important component of that as well. So, but Colleen, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to just bring up for the reduction, the possibility that we would not have fall sports. And so whether we budget that and then if it doesn't happen, I was just kind of curious how much really would that if we didn't have fall sports, what would that be? What sort of savings would we get from that? And like, could we budget it and then not have it and that, or, budget like we're going to have the sports. Yeah.
Of course, we don't know, right? But we, it's possible that after this spring season is over, that maybe Dana would have some kind of estimate on the difference in costs, say between spring 2019 and spring 2020, and that might give you an idea about that. Dana, do you have any other thoughts besides that?
Well, if you look at like just coaching positions themselves, if there's no season, if we're not paying any coaches, and you can say that that's a $20,000 to $25,000 savings right there, just kind of in coaching positions. But that doesn't factor in the transportation of all these events and what that costs as well. So that, that would obviously be an additional factor to put into, but the coaching positions are probably the easiest to kind of give a ballpark number right now.
So it's not, I mean, it's not a tremendous, compared to, other costs, it wouldn't be a tremendous savings to cut off, the sports if we had to go that route.
Roger, are you getting any indication from New York State Ed where fall sports might go? And again, I know it's early, we're still in May, but when college campuses around the country are already foregoing classes till January, what do you think the chances are that there may not be fall sports?
There's much discussion about it. I can tell you that there's it ranges from if like as we're doing this spring, if the fall turns into remote instruction, it would be a pretty clear answer that there wouldn't be sports. But if we were to return to in-person schooling in the fall, there is a reopening committee, statewide reopening committee that's formed in order to discuss all the possibilities. And those possibilities, range from all sports with some protocols in place, picking and choosing sports, moving sports from one season to the other. There's lots of discussion. Where that's going, I really couldn't tell you. We do have one of our former staff members, our former AD, Matt Wallentuck, is on that committee. He's now the chair of Section 7. And so Matt's going to be a part of those conversations. We'll be tuning into any feedback we get from him and from others. But boy, talk about lots of discussion about fall sports with no clear answers. That's where we stand right now.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And it kind of seems like the only thing that we really know is like what's happened in the past. So you almost have to plan that going forward and say, look, this is how we do things. We've always done it, and then adjust as you get more information, because what else? You're just speculating otherwise.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Any other discussion on the budget? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? 7-4-0 against the 2020-21 budgets. Next is approval of the ballot. The recommended action is be it resolved, the Lake Placid Board of Education hereby approves and adopts the attached ballot. 2021 budget. I have a motion to approve the ballot. Approval of the ballot, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff, I heard you first. Colleen, was that? Okay. Any discussion on the ballot?
Nice to see
Yeah.
board
Sorry.
members unopposed.
I'm sorry?
Our 3 board members look like they're unopposed.
Yep.
I just question is, where did we get this from, and has it been vetted by a lawyer? Yeah, where did this come?
The expert to clarify in a second, and she's right behind me. But I do want to say that, remember that the absentee ballot has always been with us, right? So we are using the absentee ballot process just as we always use the absentee ballot process. What's changed this year is that everybody gets that absentee ballot, and that everybody not only gets it, but they've also got a stamped self-addressed a stamped return envelope. But the ballot itself is a standard part of every election. So, expert, can you add to that or elaborate on it?
So I basically used the ballot format that we're using now through, I don't know, the name of the company, that we've ordered them in the past. So I just kind of took it to kind of mimic it to be the same. Binghamton City School Districts uses this ballot where I got it from. So they've been using this for many years, and I just changed our information in it.
Thanks.
Do you have concerns, Liam, or just that was just a?
No, I mean, my concern is that I've definitely dabbled in election law, and you know, in New York State, it's all about the minutia that can get ballots tossed or questioned. And so, you know, for example, like giving them the ability to decide how they're going to market the X versus the, you know, the check seems to me like it should be just circle, like the least amount of options you can give people to, you know, to make their mark. But I mean, I'll approve it. I'm just saying on its face, I don't like when it's giving people choices of an X for something else. And for me, I'd want to see it like, you know, like a fill in the circle or fill in the, you know, but just because we're giving this out to so many people now that, you know, somebody who may not want this to proceed could jam us up based on that. But that's kind of where that was my only notes, is the check, giving them the option and not having it a very specific symbol. But if you're okay with it,
I was
I'm fine.
kind of surprised that you could fill it out in a pencil.
Because it's not going through the machine.
Other than that, I'm fine. I'll vote. Yes.
Fill out the back of the absentee ballot envelope properly, your ballot won't even be open.
What could go wrong here? That's my question. I mean, I see what Liam's saying, and there is a potential to not fill something out, and then you can't count it. But you could do that with a circle that you color in too, right?
Right.
What would invalidate it? I guess is my question.
I'm surprised that there's not a standard form that was given from Cuomo's office or whatever that turned, or whatever this came from New York State, that there's not a common form that every district is supposed to use.
My only thought that what could go wrong is I could collect all these from the neighborhood and fill out what I wanted and then mail them in, but does the envelope have a signature line? Okay, good. I haven't seen the envelope, so that's good.
Yeah, but I did one for the presidential primary that apparently is now still on. And yeah, they had you signed and sealed it, and then you put in another envelope. So
when I have the signature book to compare when they come in.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
no.
All in favor of ballot?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposition? If not, the ballot will pass 7-4-0 against. The property tax report card 2020-2021 recommended action, be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the property tax report card for the 2020-21 school budget as per the attached. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. A second?
Joan will second it.
Thank you, Joan. Any discussion on the report card? If not, may I have a vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? That's 7-4-0 against. Thank you. Donation acceptance. Recommended action, whereas the Lake Placid Central Schools Board of Education policy number 6255, donations, gifts, and grants. to the district allows for the superintendent of schools to accept on behalf of the board gifts and donations having a value of less than $1,500, whereas monies from have been excuse me, received in the total amount of $8,000 from the Adirondack Foundation for the purpose of funding the Reginald Clark Scholarship Fund. Now therefore be it resolved in accordance with policy 6255, the Board of Education hereby accepts the checks from the Adirondack Foundation in the amount of $8,000 for the Reginald Clark Scholarship Fund. May I have a motion to approve, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Second, Martha. Discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 740 against. Thank you. The next donation acceptance is whereas the Lake Placid Central Schools Board of Education policy 6255 donations and gifts and grants to the district allows for the superintendent of schools to accept on behalf of the board gifts and donations having value of less than $1,500, whereas monies have been received in the total amount of $46,720 from the Adirondack Foundation for the purposes of funding the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. in the fall of 2019. Now therefore be resolved in accordance with policy 6255. The Board of Education hereby accepts the checks from the Adirondack Foundation in the amount of $46,722 for the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. fall of 2019. That'd be 20. No,
It was
past.
It was in the fall, yeah.
May I have a motion to accept this gift, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Colleen and Jeff, was it?
Was that Jeff?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, my question was, and I think Roger answered it. So it's reimbursement for the trip in the fall, not paying in advance for next year.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, all right. Thanks.
And again, many thanks to the Lucy family for providing this.
On behalf of the board, if you're all accepting of the idea, I will send a card on behalf of the board.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, by all means.
And of course, to the foundation as well. So thank you. All in favor of this donation acceptance?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? If not, moves forward 740 against. Sounded like thunder. Next up is sports mergers for the 2020-2021 sports season. Recommended action, approve the following mergers as they appear on the attached sheet for the 2020-21 school year. May I have a motion for these mergers, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Second,
Yes.
Yes.
Colleen. Questions, comments?
Yep. It's that time of year again. So I'm going to make my same comment I do every year. And that is opposing the football merger, and on the grounds that it's unnecessary risk for our students. And, time and time again, it's been shown that the risk of head injury and that comes from football. And so I though I'm going to ultimately vote in favor because I like all these other sports, I see it as unnecessary and risky. And so I continue to oppose the football merger.
Any other comments? I'll add something in here. I'd like to discuss the inclusion of into this discussion what's under our old agenda item list for some time now, and that's sports mergers. So be it we approved the budget, and also now we're looking at sports mergers. It seems like a suitable time. And I believe, unless I'm corrected, if somebody has better recollection than I, which I'm sure they do, we're looking at fairness of expenses between schools. When a merger results in increased expenses to our district, such as what happened last year, we had to add a coach. because of the large number coming from another district. So I believe the adoption of some sort of procedure that states that if a merger results in increasing expenses to our district, the Lake Placid Central School District, that the extra expense will be passed on to the merging school. That was my take. Any comments?
No, I think that sums it up concisely.
Are you going to add it to the resolution, Rick? I think it would fit nicely as the last sentence or one of the last sentences.
Yeah, I concur.
So what do you want to say it again, Rick?
Let's see, if a merger results in increased expenses to the Lake Placid Central School District, that extra expense or these expenses will be passed on to the merging school, or in parentheses, S, so schools.
Can you remind me what happened? What coach did we have to get the second? I don't.
Cross-country ski coach.
Okay.
And it was with Keene, and Keene did in fact pick up the expense for that. So thank you for that, to them for that. So Dan, Colleen, are you okay with amending or adding that language in to your motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Is everybody clear on what that motion is now?
Can you see it on your board docs that I typed it in?
I do not.
I think you probably have to refresh.
I just refreshed and let's see.
You know, it's on the meeting part. It's probably not on that part.
It's not in there.
So I have it. It says if approve the following sports mergers on the attached sheet for the 2021 school year. If a merger results in increased expenses for Lake Placid Central School, the additional costs will be incurred by the other school.
Okay,
We trust
Good.
you.
that's good.
Any further discussion? Great. All in favor of this mergers of the merger?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That'd be 7-4-0 against. Thank you. The next is Board of Education meeting dates. The recommended action is motion to set aside the previously adopted 2019-20 board meeting calendar and budget calendar, and adopt the attached updated board and budget calendars. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Colleen, second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Joan. Any discussion? Hopefully you had a chance to look over those calendars. If not, may I have all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? 7-4-0 against. The motion passed. 8H is nomination of NISBA Area 6 Director. Recommended action, whereas Wayne Rogers is the NISBA Area 6 Director, whereas Wayne Rogers is seeking a second term as the NISBA Area 6 Director, whereas Wayne Rogers is seeking nomination from Lake Placid Central School Board of Education for the NISBA Area 6 Director. Now therefore be it resolved, Lake Placid Central School Board of Education wishes to nominate Wayne Rogers as NISBA's Area 6 Director. Be it further resolved, the nomination letter for Wayne Rogers will be forwarded to Mary Matheny at NISBA. May I have a motion for this nomination?
Aye.
I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion. Sorry. Yeah.
Liam first and then Joan second. Thank you. Any discussion on this? Wayne's represented us very well, so we wish him well. Thank you.
Yes.
All in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? If not, the motion passes 7-4-0 again. 8I, special education, which is the on the consent agenda. 9 is for the good of the cause. Any,
Oh, let me check. There's no email.
so there's no emails, so we'll move past the good of the cause. Adjournment phase, the next meeting date and location, May 26th, 2020 is a budget hearing at 6 p.m. via Zoom. On June 2nd, 2020 is our next board meeting.
Yeah,
June-
the budget hearing would not be an actual meeting, correct?
Correct,
Right, so there wouldn't, it wouldn't be required that we have a quorum.
right,
Right, okay.
correct. There's no voting. It's just this budget hearing. June
Rick, you said 6 p.m., but this says 6:30.
30, I apologize. It's 6:30.
Okay.
I saw 6 on the budget booklet. So we got to make sure we get the times right on the booklet.
Oh, right, because last
Yeah.
year it was at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so we need to make, and Dana, the booklet, I believe, said 6. So if we say 6:30 for this, then we need to change the booklet.
Yeah. Is it possible to,
Thankfully, it hasn't gone out yet.
or would it be easier to keep it at 6? Just so we can hear.
What do you want to do?
Wait, I gotta see what the notice that went out said. I'm gonna have to look, I'm gonna have to log on and look. I think it's at 6:30, the notice that went out. Do you guys have one of yours at home that you can pull out and look at real quick?
What is it you want to look
It's
at?
the notice, the mailer notice that said when the budget hearing was gonna be.
Oh, right.
I can't hear you, Jeff.
I don't have it. I think I read it and then I threw it out.
Okay. I'll just have a
So
Okay, we'll email out as to whether it's 6 or 6:30, okay? Again, that's via Zoom for anybody interested in attending. It's not mandated.
Is it, I don't think I'm clear on this. This is my first one on Zoom for that. Is it interactive or is it just a presentation?
It's just what we've done in the
Just like
past,
this.
it's just the presentation. We used to marry it with a meeting,
Right.
so we'd have the.
Did you guys want to know about this?
Yeah, that's the card.
It's
that's the one.
6:30.
Or-
Tuesday, May 26th at 6:30 will be streamed live.
6:30, so the
Thank
budget
you,
booklet,
John.
the booklet will have to say 6:30 too. So it won't be interactive
Any questions? Sure.
by email or,
Yes.
but not by, like people won't be joining us on Zoom.
No, but they can watch it live.
They can watch it live and then email
Whatever
questions.
email
Yes.
question.
Got it. Okay. That's,
Mhm.
June 2nd is our next regularly scheduled board meeting. And then, of course, May 9th, or June 9th is the budget vote. And that polls and quotes close at 5 o'clock.
The counting starts at 5.
Counting starts at
So,
5.
yeah.
Okay.
Until however long it takes.
Okay. And then the next day, which is a Wednesday, June 10th, we'll need to set a meeting to accept the results of the budget vote. Does anybody have a preference on time, or should we just plan on our regular 6:30 meeting? We've done all sorts of things in the past, from a 7 a.m. meeting to 5. It's a quick meeting, so.
Why don't we do it a little early, 5 p.m.?
What's
So
that?
if we do it in the morning, that doesn't give me, that means everything will
Oh.
have to be completed the night before.
Sorry.
No, 5 p.m.
Anybody have any opposition to 5 p.m.?
I might not be able to make it as I have kids.
Okay.
I mean, most of them are gone by 5 lately, but I don't know what's gonna happen on that day. I could probably do 5:15.
5:30 even, Joni, would that help?
5:30 would help, but 5 o'clock is,
Okay.
5:30 would be great.
Anybody opposed to a 5:30 meeting?
Nope.
Let's make it a 5:30 meeting on June 10th to
Thank
approve
you.
budget results. Thank you. Old topic items, I probably have drawn a line through sports mergers. That's been there a while. We have the dashboard discussion and then the active consent CYC. Has that gone to policy?
No,
Not yet.
there hasn't been a
Okay.
policy meeting.
Right. Okay. So that will go to policy when they reconvene. Does anyone have anything else before I call for a motion to adjourn?
Do you have any new agenda topics? Wasn't you? Weren't you?
There
gonna
was a
add
new agenda
something?
topic idea that came.
There was?
I was talking about, Roger, if it was me, but you've already answered it in your superintendent report. Just the ongoing discussion for our community to know what our plans could look like possibly for September. But you did cover that, and I think it's wonderful. And I don't know if it needs to be a new agenda topic, because I'm sure that this will be just an ongoing discussion.
Great, okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, so we're good.
Okay. Anybody else have any new? If not. All right, recommended action is a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Dan. Second,
Second.
that Colleen. Thank
Sure.
you. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-4-0 against. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a great evening.
Do you want me to come back in on this for agenda?
We just get it out of the way.
Good correction.
Yes.
Okay.
You get Dana?
I think Dana cut out pretty quickly. Yeah, see ya.